Let's go over some of the terms your insurance uses often, shall we? Today, part 1, A through K. Welcome, I am the Medical Bill Whisperer, offering answers, inside solutions to patients like you. So let's go from A to K today, the basic definitions of terms and what they mean to you. Let me just remind you that I have special videos on more details on several of the different topics we are going to look at today. Let's start with A, the Affordable Care Act, shall we? It is also called Obamacare. It's been in effect for a good dozen years, and it's the federal law that forces most insurance companies to cover a minimum of medical services, some of them at no cost to you, for example, preventive care. The law also gives patients a number of rights, as well as subsidies, to help cover the costs of the premiums. The allowance is the most important item on your explanation of benefit, EOB. We'll get to that one soon. It is the amount that your insurance has deemed is the fair value of every medical services you receive. It's important because that's how the insurance calculates what they would pay and what your liability is. Now, if the provider has a direct contract with your insurance, that is considered in-network. If there is no such contract, then the provider and services are out of network. Every EOB has an allowed amount on it. The appeal is a right that you and your medical providers have to either ask an insurance to review a denial, for example, for an authorization, or after a claim has been processed and deemed incorrectly processed. The how and where to submit an appeal are listed on your EOB. Now, a grievance is often confused for an appeal, but it's a bit different. Let's get to that later. Your authorized representative can be a patient advocate, caregiver, a family member, a friend. It's someone you give legal access to all your insurance information and also the right to act on your behalf. Make sure that a signed HIPAA release form is on file with your insurance. Behavioral health is the medical care that relate to mental health conditions or substance abuse. Yes, a separate authorization and claim processing systems are placed by your insurance due to extra privacy guidelines. And parents, I know you pay the premiums, but your teen can effectively exclude you from access to their information or to act on their behalf with your insurance. I'm just reporting it. I know it makes no sense to me either. Consider the benefits to be the list of all the services or supplies that you as a member are entitled to receive under the terms of your policy. Basically, if it says covered, it means usually payable. You can find the list of those benefits in your policy. And brand name drugs are FDA approved and registered under a specific name by the manufacturer. It usually is protected and therefore can be more expensive as being the only version out there. The calendar year is the continuation of a specific amount of time that includes all the business days and the holidays. So the calendar year usually means January the 1st to December the 31st of that same year. The claim form is a special invoice that every medical provider or facility submits to your insurance in order to get paid. It details a charge for every service or item rendered to you. Now, for every claim submitted, an EOB should be issued. Co-insurance is one part of the total share of cost, meaning what you must pay before your insurance pays every allowance at 100%. The three parts of that share of costs are deductible, co-insurance, and co-pays. Once you meet your deductible, your insurance starts making payment on your behalf a percentage of this allowance. That is your co-insurance. Continuation of care is your right to have an existing authorization for a treatment or a prescription transferred to a new insurance company. It is also your right to have that same treatment or service paid at an in-network rate if it was before, but your new plan would consider that provider out of network. So basically, that continuation of care allows you to continue what was started without the need for a new authorization process, and also by keeping a better or preferential rate applied before to continue with a new plan. Now, a word of caution, this transfer is not automatic. Either your medical provider or you have to actually request that the transfer be made. Coordination of benefits applies when you have more than one policy. It is basically the determination of which policy is primary, secondary, etc. And no, this is not your personal choice. There are very strict federal guidelines that apply. So your primary would process a claim per their own allowance, and then the secondary would process the patient liability based on its own allowance. And finally, if there's any liability left, that would come to you to pay to the provider. Co-pays are one of the three parts of a share of cost, along with the co-insurance we've just seen. But it is a specific set amount that you pay at the time the service is rendered and for that specific service, usually an office visit or an ER visit. The coverage is basically the list of every benefit, the list of what is payable under the terms of your plan. The deductible is part one of that share of cost. That is the portion of every allowance that you must pay first. And only once you have met that amount will your insurance make payments on your behalf. The dental benefits are for treatment on or off the teeth and gums. However, it is usually a separate policy and an exclusion to medical plans. A dependent is someone such as your child, your married spouse, a domestic partner, someone eligible to become a member under your policy and therefore receive benefits. Parents, just be aware the month you celebrate your child's 26th birthday is the month they will automatically be dropped from your policy. But the good news is they are now eligible to get their very own policy. A drug is considered by your insurance company to be a medication or device that has been FDA approved as well as prescribed by a physician. The pharmacy benefits of your policy will process any claim for a drug you receive from your pharmacy or mail order. But should you get that RX in an office or facility, for example, chemo treatment, then your medical benefits would kick in. DME stands for Durable Medical Equipment. It is the crutches, the braces, the wheelchairs, the braces prescribed by your doctor for a short-term or long-term use. Now let's take a quick break so that I can remind you to please subscribe, like, or comment if you find the content of my videos helpful. It does help this channel grow to reach out to more patients like you. Eligibility. It means that your premiums have been paid, you are listed as a member under your plan, and the plan is active. Yay! An emergency usually means life or limb at risk. However, any condition or symptoms where you deem would be dangerous or harmful to your health, if not looked at or promptly taken care of should be considered as an emergency. Now, we mentioned you had benefits, but you also have exclusions under your policy. These are the services or items your plan does not offer or cover. The list is available also within the terms of policy. Some usual exceptions would be alternative medicine, workers' comp-related injuries, dental or vision care, and supplements. And speaking of experimental, these are all the services or drugs not FDA approved, not considered standard of care in the US, or who do not follow the insurance medical policy. And now, finally, on to that explanation of benefit. This most important paper from your insurance determines whose responsibility is how much. It applies the plan's benefit to a charge from your provider and calculates any payment based on the terms of your policy and any contract between the provider and your insurance. So how much you will eventually be liable for will be on your EOB. Of importance, if it shows that zero has been allowed and possibly paid, should be a red flag or definitely something to call your insurance to ask about. The facility is a location where medical staff is specialized or offered 24/7. This is the kind of care or service that your doctor's office, a neighborhood clinic cannot offer. If your care requires you to stay overnight at least 24 hours, you are then considered inpatient. If less than 24 hours, then you are outpatient. An example for outpatient would be an ER visit, urgent care visit, or a treatment at an infusion center. Inpatient would be after a surgery at the hospital or a stay at a psych facility. The formulary is the complete list of the drugs that are covered and therefore payable under your policy. This includes brand names and generic options. And moving on to generic, this is the brand name drug whose patent has expired. It's the same formula as the brand name, but the very cheaper option. And grievance, I have mentioned, is not an appeal. It is basically a dispute or a complaint by the member for the quality of care received by a provider or how an insurance has mishandled some form of information or task. You could complain that an authorization or access to care is taking too long, or also about poor customer service. A group plan is a policy provided by your employer. It is not an individual policy, which is one that you would have bought by yourself, for yourself, on the open market or through the Obamacare exchange. HMO is one of the two major types of plans out there, the other one being PPO. An HMO member must use a local, more restricted network of providers and must obtain a special authorization for most services. I have mentioned in-network a few times already. It means two things. Either the provider has a direct contract or agreement with your insurance, or a state or federal law forces your insurance to apply that rate for an out-of-network provider. So what does in-network means? Because of that direct contract between the provider and your insurance must pay the highest rate. In exchange, it gives preferential treatment, for example, expedited authorizations or expedited payments. This also allows the insurance to save the most amount of money. The provider will get paid more by your insurance for less bureaucracy and giving you a discount in exchange for added benefit by the insurance. And for you, it means that because your insurance will pay the most, you get a discount that saves you the most. But also, providers will open the door more promptly for you. Now, a word of caution. Getting the in-network rate when the provider is out of network is not automatic, even though it should be in certain cases. For example, emergency, some state laws, one-time agreement, or special authorizations. An inpatient, we have seen, is when your care in a facility requires you to stay overnight at least 24 hours. And I invite you to watch part 2 on the glossary from L to Z. Thank you so much for your subscribe, likes, comments. I could not do it without you. I hope you find this content as helpful and empowering as I aim it to be.